2023 is looking to be an insanely stacked year for cinema, with multiple new releases from Marvel and DC, long-awaited sequels, new takes on pre-existing IPs, and tons of new players coming along. But there's 10 movies that truly stand out to me for this year and have me very excited for what's to come for arguably the greatest year since 2019 in the theater. Let me know your ranking down below for your top 10 most anticipated films, and let's get them ranked. Coming in at number 10, I have The Marvels, which releases on July 28th, 2023. The Marvels is the second installment of the Captain Marvel franchise and is also a sequel to the TV show Ms. Marvel within the MCU. It features Brie Larson reprising her role as Captain Marvel, Iman Vellani as Ms. Marvel, and Lashana Lynch also reprising her role as Monica Rambeau. This movie is looking like it could be a very good film, but also it could be lower down like Captain Marvel was. And I'm really hoping that Phase 5 of the MCU is a lot better than Phase 4. But I got to keep my expectations right about here instead of up top like they all were for last year. So that has this film drop down to 10. But if the post-credit scene from Ms. Marvel has anything to say about this, I think we're in for a pretty decent treat. At number 9, I have Champions, which releases on March 24th. This is a movie where I haven't seen many people talking about it, to be honest, and I think that it has a chance to be one of the best movies of the year. It's based on a Spanish film with the same name, and I've heard very good things about that. I haven't watched it. I'm just waiting for Champions to come out to actually watch the story. But I've heard nothing but good things about it. And if this is about the same as how that was, I know that this will be good. It stars Woody Harrelson as Marcus, a former minor league basketball coach who ends up receiving a court order to coach a team of players who have multiple different intellectual disabilities. And I thought that the comedy, at least from the trailer, seemed really good. So hopefully the movie is just as hilarious as the trailer was, and you walk out of the theater with a smile on your face, just laughing the whole time. And coming in at number 8, our first DC entry on the list, and actually the only DC entry I have in my top 10, that being Shazam! Fury of the Gods, which releases on March 17th. It's a sequel to the critically acclaimed Shazam, which stars Zachary Levi and Asher Angel both reprising their roles as Shazam, a superhero who can transform from a preteen to an adult just by saying the phrase of Shazam. This will be the latest entry in the DC Extended Universe, which I'd say has already had multiple stellar releases as of late. And if the first Shazam has anything to say for this and what to expect, this movie will be one of my favorite comic book films of 2023. And coming in at number 7, I have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which releases on June 30th. This is the 5th installment of the very successful Indiana Jones franchise, which actually hasn't seen a new release since 2008. Harrison Ford is once again reprising his role as Indiana Jones, and this film was actually supposed to be released all the way back in 2019, but due to delays in writing and then a global pandemic, it's finally releasing this year in 2023, and will be continuing the journey of Indiana Jones himself. At number 6, I have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which releases on July 14th. Dead Reckoning Part 1 is actually the first of 2 films to close off the ever-successful franchise, which stars Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt. It's, in my opinion, one of the greatest movie franchises out there, and it'll be very interesting to see what they do to end off Ethan's story with both of these Dead Reckoning films. And I think 2024, Dead Reckoning Part 2 may be ending up in top 3 most anticipated films. But first, we have to see what they do with Dead Reckoning Part 1 to see if they'll be able to make Dead Reckoning Part 2 that good. At number 5, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which releases on May 5th. With James Gunn directing once again, I don't think there's any way this film can go wrong. He has been amazing in the comic book film genre lately, and if this is as good as his last 2 Guardians of the Galaxy films, as the Suicide Squad, as Peacemaker, I really cannot wait to see this, and this has the opportunity to end up being the best trilogy in the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe if they do this film properly. At number 4, I have Super Mario Bros., which releases on April 7th, 2023. This movie stars Chris Pratt as Mario, which I'd say wasn't really the greatest voice choice to be Mario.
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come!
But that doesn't really draw my anticipation for the film. I've wanted a movie like this since I was a little kid, and I am so excited to be finally getting this. Even if it's not the best movie, I am 100% being first in line to purchase the tickets, and this will completely let out my inner child. Mario, growing up, was my favorite video game franchise. I love Sonic. I love the Sonic movies. Mario is just that much higher. This is what I grew up on. This was my childhood. This is, as a teenager, this is still my favorite video game franchise of all time. And this is the movie I've wanted for over a decade. And before I get into the top 3, I just like to give some honorable mentions to a few movies that just missed out on being in the top 10. As I am editing this video, I've realized that I forgot to include The Flash in this, which it 100% should be in my top 10, not just under honorable mentions, but in the top 10. I don't know how I forgot this. The Marvels should be an honorable mention. It should not be in the top 10. The Flash should arguably be top 5. I just completely forgot this movie was coming out, and I apologize in advance. We have Wonka, which releases on December 15th. It's another remake of the Willy Wonka movies and the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which releases on December 25th. The sequel to the first Aquaman film, which has gone through a bit of controversy due to the Amber Heard situation. Barbie, which releases on July 21st. This movie, I'm not sure will be that good, but I'm very excited to go see it. Oppenheimer, which releases on July 21st as well. Another entry from Christopher Nolan, who's one of my favorite directors of all time, and I'm really excited to see what he does with the story of Robert Oppenheimer. Dune Part 2, which releases on November 3rd. The sequel to the first Dune movie, which came out back in 2021. Let's see what they can do to improve on the story. And coming in at number 3, I have Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which releases on November 17th. It's the prequel to the very successful Hunger Games. It takes place about 64 years before the first Hunger Games actually took place, and it follows an 18-year-old Coriolanus Snow who's mentoring District 12 tribute Lucy Gray Baird, and it will show us how Snow kind of got his start with the Hunger Games. And the Hunger Games is actually my favorite book-to-film adaptation series, and I actually haven't read this book just yet, but this movie will certainly give me some more reading to do, and this is one of my favorite movie franchises of all time. So to see them doing a prequel, see how everything kind of started, this is what I've been wanting since I actually watched the first few Hunger Games. And at number 2, I have Spiderman Across the Spiderverse, which releases on June 2nd. And I know what you guys may be thinking. You probably thought I'd have this number 1. So you may be a bit surprised to see this actually at number 2. This will be continuing the story of Miles Morales and is the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which just so happens to actually be my favorite animated movie of all time. And is actually one of the best Spider-Man films as well. And knowing this film is to be setting up a 3rd installment in the series, I cannot wait to see what they do to not only continue on Miles Morales' story, but to also set up his story for the future. I haven't even really seen the trailer. Whenever I'm at the theater and the trailer shows up, I kind of just look down. Like, I don't want to know anything about this movie. I haven't read any plot points. I just want to go into this movie with a completely blank slate. And finally, at number 1, I have AntMan and the Wasp Quantumania, which releases on February 17th. This movie is looking to be absolutely insane. It brings Kang the Conqueror into the MCU movie side, as his only appearance has really just been a slight little cameo in Loki. And the Ant-Man franchise is actually top 3 for me in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just behind Captain America and Spider-Man. I'm probably one of the bigger Ant-Man fans out there. Now, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but I do really love Ant-Man. Paul Rudd is once again reprising his role as Scott Lang, and will once again be needing to save the universe just like he did back in Avengers Endgame. This is actually the first movie, the first project to be kicking off Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let me know your thoughts down below. This list was very difficult to make, and to narrow it down to only 10 films that I'm excited for was very, very difficult. And I know that I will be spending the entire year in the movie theater.